All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this webinar on how to ace GMAT Reading Comprehension. My name is Rajat Satana. I'm one of the co-founders of e-GMAT, and I'm going to be your co-host today. With me, I have Payal Tandon, who's the other co-founder of e-GMAT, and she's going to be our main host today. The topic of this webinar is how to ace GMAT Reading Comprehension in 10 days. In this webinar, we talk about key reading strategies, which if you follow, can help you enhance your comprehension, your ability to comprehend sophisticated English language. And once you improve comprehension, acing GMAT reading comprehension becomes actually a fairly simple task. This is a free webinar. It's quite heavily attended, and to make sure that we do justice to this group as a whole, we ask a few leading questions. One of them is, when do you plan to take the test? And the second one is, what is your target GMAT score? Let's look at the makeup of this group by analyzing the response to the first question. So based on the data that I have, the biggest group that we have is those who have between 46 and 60 days before their GMAT. That's about 33% of folks over here. We also have fairly large groups of people in those who have their exam in about 15 to 30 days, and those who have more than a couple of months before the test. And then we have a few folks who have their exam right away, and then a significant number of people who have between 31 to 45 days before the test. Now, with regards to the target GMAT score, the biggest group over here is the 730 to 750 group. Quite a few people in the 760 or higher group as well, and also a very significant number of folks in the 710 or 720 group. Interestingly, only about 13% of you are aiming for a score of 700 or less, or between 6 and 700. Overall, that's wonderful. Now, as I mentioned earlier, while this is the goal of this webinar is to help you understand the key reading strategies and help you apply those key reading strategies as well, that can help you enhance your ability to comprehend an RC passage and overall increase your GMAT score. So this is a fairly application-focused webinar, and to make sure that you know the underlying concepts that we'd be applying, we did send a couple of video lessons your way on Main Point. Now, these video lessons, if you've gone through them, that's excellent. If you haven't, they are a part of your free trial. Just log into your e-GMAT account. You'll be able to get to these video lessons. Also, for those of you who've joined us in the last 3 minutes or so, we have 2 free webinars. We have a free quant workshop. Think of this as a proctored mock test in which we help you understand what your current ability is, and then we help you pinpoint the areas of weakness and create a personalized study plan for you. That's tomorrow, 7 a.m. Pacific, which is the same time tomorrow. And then we have a critical reasoning webinar next Saturday, a week from now. This is a foundation webinar, in which we teach how to pre-think assumptions, and essentially then we then teach you how to extend that approach towards evaluate, strengthen, and weaken questions. Okay, with that, let's go right into the webinar pane. As we get into the webinar pane, the screen will have changed, or will be in the process of changing for you. And once the transition is over, you'd see a slide which says GMAT Reading Comprehension. You'd see my photograph as well as the topic. Below the presentation pod, you'd see a Q&A or a question and answer pod. If during the webinar you have any question, you're welcome to post that question in the Q&A pod below. Just to make sure that we start this webinar and end it on time, I would recommend that we keep the questions that are relevant to the topics being discussed. There's essentially 3 parts of this webinar. In the first part, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to e-GMAT, and the second part, Payal would take over. We'll get into right into the core of this webinar, and then towards the end, we'll have an open-ended Q&A. With that, let's start the first part, which is an introduction to e-GMAT. Now, earlier on, I asked this question, which is what's your target GMAT score? And more than 50% of the people were aiming for a score of 730 or higher. While that is the case over here, and I have about 150 odd students in the group over here, I can tell you that only 6% of the people who prepare for the GMAT get to a 720 or higher score. And this is despite the fact that median scores at top B schools continue to go up, and this is data, the latest data that we have, which is from fall of 2018, where you can see the median scores at top these schools. You can see the source of data, it's from mba.com. So what is it that people who get to those scores, the 730 or higher scores, do? A good number of them use e-GMAT. Why do we say that? When you look at the key stats on all the major forums over there, whether it's the total number of verified reviews and total number of success stories, and compare those against other prep companies, what you're going to find is that the more people who've reviewed our courses than have reviewed the courses from all other prep companies combined, and more people mention e-GMAT in their success stories than do mention all other companies combined. Again, this data on the right is from the last 12 months, whereas the data on verified reviews is from October of 2015. So it's about 3.5 years old or so, or close to 4, I would say. So what makes our students more successful than students from other prep companies? I think if there's one thing that sets us apart from our competitors is how we think about your GMAT preparation, or the architecture of learning that we provide. And to understand those architectures of learning, let's kind of look at the prevalent learning architectures today. If you think about the learning architectures today, what you're going to find, and if you do some research, you're going to find that there are two learning architectures that are prevalent today. One is what we call as the book-based architecture, and the second is the private tutoring-based architecture. Now, when you map the courses that are available in the industry, today, what you're going to find is that while there are many companies that provide audio-visual instruction, while they may provide quizzes, they may provide tests, the core learning architecture is based around that book-based architecture. Whereas if you map our offerings on these two architectures, what you're going to find is that e-GMAT's based a lot more on that private tutor-based approach. So let's see what's the difference in learning provided by these two architectures, and why one architecture leads to a much higher success rate than the other. So to do that, let's kind of understand how do you use the GMAT. So if you want to use the GMAT, you've got to do a few things, right? First of all, depending on your strengths, you've got to create a unique part to that 720 or higher score. Then you need to make sure that you learn all the concepts that you need to learn. These are the concepts that you don't know. Then learning concepts isn't enough. You also need to learn how to apply these concepts. And you need to become so good at applying these concepts that you attain a level of mastery that puts you in that top 6, top 5, or top 1 percentile of students out there. Let's see how a book-based approach tackles this problem. And we'll start with creating that personalized study plan. So when you think about a book-based approach, it's all about autonomy. So when you start studying using books, a book would give you a few study plans, and you'll have to choose one of those few study plans and decide whether that plan is suited to what your strengths, what your weaknesses are. You don't get any personalized study plan. You actually don't even, in many cases, get an instruction on how to create that personalized study plan. Now, once you decide a study strategy, a study plan, a path towards your goal, you start studying and you start learning concepts. Now, books are really good at teaching you concepts. A number of good books out there that will tell you what a verb-ing modifier is, that will tell you what an assumption is. The problem really is books are not as great at ensuring that you learn concepts, which means that they don't validate whether you've learned a concept properly or not enough to be able to move from one concept to the other. The next thing once you learn concepts is you learn how to apply concepts, and books, from the data that we have seen today, books are not as great at teaching you how to apply those concepts, which is telling you what you need to do in step 1, what do you need to do in step 2, what do you need to do in step 3. Books are also unable to tell you when you make a mistake while solving a question, the step in which you made a mistake. Hence, people who learn using books, they basically do solve hundreds of questions to master application. A few do, but many, despite solving hundreds of questions, are unable to do so and they give up. Similarly, with regards to evaluation of mastery, whether you are close to that 720 score, whether you are on that path towards that 720 score or not, people who study using books, they take a number of mock tests. They do get certain scores, but again, that onus of validation with regards to, hey, where have I improved? Which are the areas that I still need to work on? That's completely on the student. A private tutoring architecture works very differently. When you work with a good private tutor, the first thing that a good private tutor would do is spend a couple of hours with you to understand your strengths, to understand your weaknesses, and based on that, a good private tutor would create a comprehensive study plan. He'll also give you an estimate of how much time you need to put in, where you need to put in that time, and so on and so forth. So essentially, once you work with a good private tutor, you'd be able to envision your entire GMAT preparation. And then a good private tutor will teach you concepts and then will constantly give you feedback on the areas that you need to work on. Similarly, a good private tutor, after having taught you concepts, will also tell you how to apply those concepts. What do you do in step 1? What do you do in step 2 and step 3 while solving a problem? Similarly, while you're solving questions, the good private tutor would constantly evaluate your performance and give you precise feedback on areas where you need to work on. And once you've gotten so good that you are among those top 6 percentile of students, a good private tutor would move you from one topic to the other. So what's the difference in these two approaches? While you learn the same content, the extent of personalization, the extent of feedback, the extent of application is a lot more in a private tutor based approach. And you can really see why that's a lot more successful than the book based approach. Now let's see why is it that we say that most of the other prep courses are built around this book-based approach, and whereas courses by e-GMAT are based on this private tutoring-based architecture. We'll take the example of someone who wants to go from a 600 to a 720 score. Now, the first step that you need to do is to create a personalized study plan. And to make sure that each one of you is able to do that, we've created this tool called GMAT Planner, which is an AI-driven utility that empowers everyone to build their own personalized study plan. The beauty of this is, if you have the right data, you can create a day-by-day study plan in as few as 5 minutes. Let's see how this utility works. The first thing that this utility does is it takes your current quant and verbal score. Now, in this case, for this particular student who's at 600, he's at a Q44 and in a V28. It's the 50th percentile in both quant and verbal. Now, since this is an intelligent utility, it understands that even though a Q44 is 50th percentile, the amount of knowledge, quant knowledge that a person needs to have to get to a Q44 is a lot more than the amount of verbal knowledge that a person needs to have to secure a V28. Hence, while recommending a score breakup for a 720, this utility first increases your quant score to a fairly high level and then increases the verbal score such that you get to that 720 score. If you like, I think this is an excellent recommendation, but if you want to change it, you can definitely change that over here, and as you change the quant recommended or target quant score, it automatically adjusts the target verbal score. Now, once you've decided on a target quant and a target verbal score, it then tells you how do you get to a Q50, how do you get to a V38, and to do that, your quant and verbal scores are built up for your quant and verbal abilities, and it figures out what are the many ways that you can get to a Q50 and a V38, which is the most optimal way for you. Now, why is this important? The reason why this is important is because that when you do this, your overall GMAT preparation becomes a set of 5 milestones that you need to achieve. Starting from the quant milestone on the left, which is, starting from a 59th percentile in arithmetic or a 39th percentile in algebra to an 83rd percentile in arithmetic and a similar percentile in algebra as well. And then similarly on the verbal side, these percentiles in verbal at the bottom left-hand corner to the percentiles, to the target percentiles on the bottom right-hand corner. Now, some of you are asking, how do I figure out my starting percentiles? If you log into your free e-GMAT account, you can really get to what we call a sigma x mocks. When you take a mock test, it gives your percentile in arithmetic, algebra, and similarly your SCCR and RC percentile. So you spend a couple of hours, you get excellent insights on what your starting abilities are. Once you have your starting and ending percentiles, it also calculates how much time you would need to improve. And this calculation is done based on the time spent on the e-GMAT course and the number of hours you can spend during a working day versus a weekend. Here you can really see this particular student can go from a 59th percentile in arithmetic to an 83rd percentile in arithmetic in about 9 to 10 days or so. That's about 1.4 weeks, and so on and so forth. So like a private tutor, it also gives you, the amount of time that you need to spend, and like a private tutor, actually even beyond a private tutor, it gives you your day-by-day plan, and I'll show you how that plan looks like. So here you can see the amount of time that you're putting in on a weekday and a weekend, and you can customize that. You can see your starting date, you can see your ending date as well. Okay, and you can see the day-by-day plan as the number of hours that you're going to spend on every day. And then you can customize this as well. If there are certain days that you don't want to study, you can definitely click on those days and add 0 hours, and it will adjust the plan accordingly. So why did we spend upwards of 1,000 hours building this utility? So that each one of you can create your study plan in 7 minutes or fewer. And a lot of you've had upwards of 5,000 study plans created using this utility. 5,000, and this utility was launched towards end of February. So you're talking about 3 months or so, and 5,000 odd study plans being created overall. So the next step that a private tutor does is teaches you concepts, and while teaching you concepts, a private tutor constantly tells you the areas that you need to work on, or in other words, constantly gives you feedback. Our learning architecture is designed to do just that. Here's one of the 12 modules in our subject verb in our sentence correction course. What you see over here are video lessons in which we teach you concepts. Now each of these video lessons has its own personalized quiz in which we evaluate how well you learned the lesson, and essentially, which are the areas that you still need to work on. When you compare this to another course, this is by Magoosh, what you really see is this similar set of video lessons, but there's no feedback. It's just as if a book has been put in an audio visual format. The next step is learning application of concepts. To make sure that you learn how to apply these concepts, what we do is we've created this file called an application file, in which we tell you what you need to do in step 1, what you need to do in step 2 and step 3. Then we evaluate your ability to apply something, and then we also give you a set of targeted practice questions on which you can apply the same concepts. Again, you get feedback at every stage. You compare this with another course, which is by Magoosh, you're going to find that there's no practice. There's just one quiz, and again, you don't get that score. And the intent over here is not to give you feedback, but just to provide practice. Then the next piece is evaluation of mastery. Now, why is this important? The reason why this is important is because you're studying sentence correction, or in your case, reading comprehension, not because you love it, but because you want to hit that target ability score. To make sure that you can evaluate yourself in sentence correction when you're studying sentence correction, or in reading comprehension when you're studying reading comprehension, we have ability quizzes. In these ability quizzes, you can really figure out what your target ability score is. You can also figure out which are the areas that you need to work on to improve your ability score. So comparisons, for example, is an area for concern for this particular student. If she fixes comparison, she'd be able to hit that 90th percentile ability in sentence correction. When you get such targeted feedback, improvement becomes a process rather than a chore. So you can really see why and how we've architected the e-GMAT platform so that it behaves a lot more like a private tutor, and how is this architecture of learning different from the architecture of learning provided by other prep companies. Now, we've created some of this content. 4 out of GMAT Club's top 5 rated instructors have created this content, instructors who've been reviewed a lot more frequently on GMAT Club. So while only 6% of the people get to that 720 or higher score, a good percentage of them do use e-GMAT. With that, I've come to the end of my introduction. We are starting our next batch of GMAT Live Prep next week. We're starting with critical reasoning, then we'll move on to sentence correction, and then we'll end with reading comprehension. All of our live courses come with an unparalleled score improvement guarantee. For example, a verbal live prep comes with a score improvement guarantee of up to plus 7 points on a scale of 60, and this guarantee goes all the way up to 98 percentile. Similarly, on quant, we also have a guarantee which is up to plus 7 points, and this goes all the way up to Q50. And again, I want to mention this, that there are other prep companies that offer guarantees as well, but our guarantee is a pure guarantee, which means we don't ask you to take the test twice. If you've taken the test once, you take our course, you don't improve to the promised amount, we refund your money. If you want to download the batch calendars, you guys can download the same from here. You'll really see 2 batches starting next week, one starting with quant, the other starting with verbal. With that, I've come to the end of my introduction. I'm now going to invite Payal to start the reading comprehension portion of the webinar. If you want to stay updated with all things e-GMAT, if you want to stay updated with most of the things that go on in the MBA world, you can connect with me on my LinkedIn. We post about 5 articles every week on LinkedIn. With that, I'd now like to invite Payal to start the second portion of this webinar.
Thank you, Rajat, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Payal Tanton, and I will be your host for this part of the webinar. I welcome everyone to our C1 session, in which we're going to talk about how you can master reading comprehension by just changing your attitude towards reading comprehension and by employing the appropriate reading strategies to ace GMAT RC. All right, so before we get started, I'd like to understand, how do you perceive reading comprehension as? So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I would like to get your responses for the same, but let me just ask you one more question here. Can you all hear me clearly? Yes or no? All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you very much. Just give me a couple of seconds to get the appropriate polls through which I can get your responses. All right, so tell me, how many of you enjoy reading comprehension? By that, what I mean is, if your study plan tells you that, okay, from tomorrow onwards, you're going to start preparing for reading comprehension, how many of you get excited by that idea? Or how many of you look forward to even preparing for reading comprehension? All right, so about less than half of the class, about 40% of the class enjoys reading comprehension, and the remaining, it's really 45, 55, do not look forward to it. All right, now tell me, for those of you who do not look forward to it, why is it that you do not enjoy reading comprehension? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? The topics... time consuming and lots of information, attention span, length of passage, it's mundane, long passages. Dense structure, vague topics that I have never read, all right, too much to read. So it appears as if it's really the very nature of reading comprehension that it is based on a passage that is designed to be dense. That very nature of reading comprehension keeps you from liking reading comprehension as a section. All right, fair enough. Now, next what I'm going to do is I'll show you 5 options on the screen, and I want you to tell me which of these options do you resonate, which of these options resonate with you, or resonate with you the most. I mean, all of these would resonate with you, or maybe one or more, but which is the one that resonates with you the most? All right, let's get a few more responses here. Sounds good. All right, so the largest segment of the class associates with reading speed being slow and the timing aspect of the test, not enough time. Then we have not enough retention, and answer choices are very close as the close to second, and in fact passages are too complex is also right there. Okay, so familiarity doesn't get in the way of most of you, but it is really that the answer choices are very close, or that you are not, or the passages are too complex. Those are the two which are pretty which form a pretty big segment. And then the reading speed is very slow, definitely is there. All right, sounds good. Now I'm going to ask you another question, and what I want you to tell me is, how many of you know the difference between an active reader and a passive reader? Okay, so some of you don't know what the difference is. Now, those of you who know what the difference is, tell me, what is it? What is an active reader, and how is an active reader different from a passive reader? So explain the difference. There are 38 of you who are saying that they know the difference. So let's understand from them what the difference between an active reader and a passive reader is. Okay, time to understand the meaning. Active reader reads with understanding. Analysis. Active reader is the one who understands the content, unlike the passive reader who reads superficially. Absolutely spot on. An active reader engages with the passages. Absolutely right. Active reader skims through and reads and retains the essential part. Not really. Again, what I'm doing right now is I'm just reading some of the responses that as you all are typing in, and I'm just commenting, taking up a few and then commenting on those. So an active reader skims through the passage and focuses on the important messages. No, that is not what an active reader does. But we are definitely going to talk about why I'm saying that is not the case as we proceed on. An active reader will comprehend the information. Yes. Passive reader. An active reader reads aloud. No, that is not the difference. Active is totally engrossed in the passage. All right, good. So these responses are really, some of these responses are absolutely spot on. Now let me tell you what an active reader is. An active reader, as some of you have already mentioned, is the one who immerses himself in the passage. Active reader is the one who tries to make sure that as he or she is reading the passage, he or she is also understanding what the passage is saying. Whereas a passive reader is just simply reading the words. The passive reader simply reads on the surface and doesn't put in the effort to understand what the author is trying to communicate. That is the difference between an active reader and a passive reader. And why that difference comes about is something that, why do we have readers who are, some readers who are active reader and some readers who are passive readers? We'll talk about that as well. But first I want to make sure that all of you understand what the difference between an active reader and a passive reader is. Now, one statement that I'm going to make now is the major difference between a person who aces reading comprehension and who struggles with it. This difference comes from whether you are an active reader or a passive reader, and it's very clear, it's very obvious, but still I would state the obvious that an active reader is the one who would not have problems with reading comprehension. An active reader is the one who's going to ace reading comprehension. Passive reader, on the other hand, will always keep struggling with reading comprehension, and that is a fact which we have. That is something which we have seen time and again with our students, and that is what we are going to talk about in this session. Our goal, as I said earlier on, was that I want to help you ace reading comprehension. Now, how am I going to do that? I'm going to do that by telling you how is it that you can become an active reader. And for that, the first thing that we're going to do is my goal is to tell you how to get the maximum from the passage. For that, because you need to be converted into an active reader, for that I'm going to be introducing reading strategies to you, and I'm going to be demonstrating these strategies through 2 small passages. So again, I want to make sure that you understand the intent of this session. The intent of this session is what we are going to do in this session is not solve 3 or 4 RC passages with 3 or 4 questions each. No, that is not what we are here for. What we are here for is to give you the right kind of strategy so that you yourself can prepare utilizing the tools that you get from e-GMAT, so that you can prepare for reading comprehension and you can ace this section. Now, once you understand the information, the second thing to do is you need to make sure that you can utilize that information to answer the questions that have been asked, because ultimately that's what the goal of understanding the information presented in the passage in the GMAT context is, right? So you need to be able to use that information to answer questions. And for that, I'm going to demonstrating a main point question and then an inference question. So the 2 passages that we do, one of the passages will have the main point question and the other passage is going to have the inference question. Okay, so, and in the end we're going to stitch it all up, and I'm going to provide you with a study plan that you can utilize to master reading comprehension. Now, how many of you feel that if you have not been, okay, first let me ask another question. How many of you consider yourself as an avid reader? Okay, I have about 210 people. Let's get some more responses floating here. Okay, so about 75% of the class believes that they are not an avid reader. By avid reader, what I mean is that you are really, you are well read, you read lots of novels, you read lots of, non-fiction books, fiction books as well, right? So you just read a lot. Okay, so about 75% of the class considers itself as not an avid reader. Okay. How many of you feel, now for those of you who are avid reader, who don't consider themselves as avid readers, how many of you feel that because you have not really invested your life, because you have not really invested in reading throughout your life, that's the reason why you will not be able to master RC? How many of you feel that? People who consider themselves as avid readers. Majority of you, right? First thing I want you guys to do is, this group of people, I want you to trash that mental block that you have. That is absolutely not true, okay? Just because you have not been an active reader till now has got nothing to do with how you can treat RC going forward in the GMAT context, or for that matter, how you can treat a big chunky piece of text through the years to come. Okay, so this is not, don't consider this to be your shortcoming. It's not something that cannot be fixed. Okay, all right, so that's the first thing that I'm going to tell you. Now the second thing is, which is a very important thing, is, and that applies to everyone, is the attitude towards reading comprehension. Okay, your journey to acing GMAT RC starts with having that right kind of attitude towards RC. There's so many of you who are scared of RC, who consider RC to be your nemesis. You consider RC to be that one thing that stops you from getting that verbal score of 40 or 44 or 45, right? Or that 750 score. If you really want to get to that 750 score, to that 760 score, you need to change that attitude. You need to believe in yourself that you can do it. Okay, you can definitely ace reading comprehension, right? That's the first and the foremost thing to do. Now, why am I being so emphatic about this attitude, right? Why am I not talking about, okay, apply this reading strategy, apply that reading strategy, or this is how you need to answer a main point question? The reason for that is that RC, the problem behind RC is solved to about 50% if you change your attitude. That's the nature of RC. I mean, in RC, you don't have a long list of concepts to memorize. You don't have a whole lot of, formulas to think about the way you have it in quant. In RC, half of the problem is solved if you just change your attitude, if you just tweak your attitude to the right level. Okay, and that's what we are going to, that's the reason why I'm focusing on this attitude bit so much. Okay. Approach the passage with an attitude of an active reader. What do I mean by that? By that, what I mean is that you need to immerse yourself in the passage. When you see that RC passage in front of you, the first thing that comes in your mind today is that, oh my God, RC again. No. Oh my God, I can't handle that. No. That is something which needs to change starting from today. The moment you see an RC passage, regardless of the topic of that passage, regardless of the length of that passage, regardless of the kind of difficult terms that have been used in the passage, regardless of the sentence structure of the passage, the first thing that you need to do is be positive about that passage. Okay. The statement that you should tell yourself is, I want to know what the author is trying to communicate to me. I really want to know that. Okay, I want to understand. The author has taken so much of pains to write this passage. I want to understand what is it that he's trying to tell me. Okay, that is the attitude that you need to have. And it may sound very philosophical, but believe me, if you start trying it out, you're going to see how much you are going to open yourself up to what the author is trying to say. You have to get in that conversation with the author. Okay, and again, think about this. When you are conversing in a group of friends or in a group of colleagues, when you're conversing, you are engaged in that conversation, right? You are trying to understand what your fellow colleague is talking about, or what your friend is talking about, and you are analyzing that information as you are hearing that information. You're not just and compare that to a friend who's just sitting there, just because he consider another person who's not actively engaged in that conversation. For that person, they're just words floating by. You need to be a person who's completely engaged in that conversation, in that discussion that's going on. That's how you need to be when you see an RC passage. Okay, and really, you're definitely going to see topics which are not going to be of any interest to you. You'll see topics of, for example, for people who are not into humanities, you're going to read topics about women emancipation, about racial segregation, this and that. Yes, you may not ever want to know about that, but when you see that passage in front of your screen, you should be the most interested in that passage. During those 10 minutes, nothing else in the world should matter except for that very topic, except for you and the author of the passage. That is what I'm saying, that you need to change your attitude. That is what I mean by getting the right kind of attitude. You need to immerse yourself in the passage. And I really cannot teach you how to immerse in the passage. It's you on an individual basis that has to build that attitude. Okay? Right? So, if you do this first step, if you get immersed in the passage, if you have a positive attitude towards RC, the remaining reading strategies will definitely follow through very, very easily. Okay, so now let's talk about the reading strategies here, the first one. But before I go there, do all of you understand what I said about getting immersed in the passage by getting that attitude right? what is it that you're going to do today after listening to me regarding immersing yourself in the passage that you haven't done before? Tell me. And again, I'm going to be talking about the reading strategies right now. Oh, I like that. Read happily. That's a good one. Focus on keywords. Now, we're not talking about the strategies. Increase concentration. Get rid of the fear. Good. Very nice. Try to think this is the last passage of my life. Okay, that's a nice one. Pay more attention. Okay, good. There's some of you who have put in very, I'll choose an uninterested topic. Good. Change the perception. Good. It's all about changing the perception, what the author has to say to me. Good. Think that it will give me a V44. Very nice. Keep the end goal in mind. Absolutely right. Read passage as if my girlfriend wrote a letter to me. Okay, that's interesting. Very nice. Good. Very nice. Don't assume difficulty. Good. Okay, so now let's talk about the first reading strategies. The first reading strategy is understand the sentence structure. Okay, and again, you can apply these 3 reading strategies. We're going to be talking about 3 reading strategies. You can apply these 3 reading strategies in the right manner only if you have the right kind of attitude. Okay, that's the first and the foremost thing. Now, understand sentence structure. Okay, and one more thing before I go into the details of these 3 reading strategies. You also have to make sure that you do not worry about time, because as I start talking about these reading strategies, I know there's going to be that alarm that's going to go on in your mind asking me, okay, Payal, you're telling me all these things, but what about the timing aspect of the test? How can I do all these things when I know that GMAT is a timed exam, when I know that I have to solve these many questions in this much amount of time? Keep that concern on the side. Don't worry about that. Just have faith in what I'm telling you, and because what I'm telling you has worked with thousands and thousands of students. Okay, what I'm telling you is not something that I created just based on my whim. No, this is something that has worked with thousands and thousands of students. This is something which I personally use, which has made me so very effective in understanding huge chunks of information. And believe me, I am no avid reader. Okay, so all right, so those are the 2 things that I request from you. Don't worry about time and have faith in the strategies that I'm going to be discussing with you. Okay. All right, so now let's talk about the first strategy, which is understand the sentence structure. Now, an RC passage is composed of a number of sentences, right? It's composed of, first of all, paragraphs, and then in paragraphs you have these different sentences. Now, typically what happens is that people consider one sentence to be the building block of a passage. I want you to stop thinking that. You need to consider, instead, you need to consider an idea in a sentence to be the building block of a reading comprehension passage. The moment you start doing that, what you start to see is that your comprehension ability has increased a whole lot. So essentially what I'm trying to tell you is read every sentence of an RC passage the way we prescribe you to read every sentence in a sentence correction question. That is, break down that sentence into its smaller chunks, understand the meaning of the smaller chunks, relate the meaning with what you read next, and then summarize that information on your own. Okay, understand the sentence structure. That is the first and the foremost strategy that you need to apply, and I'm going to be demonstrating this strategy to you as we go along. Okay, how many of the e-GMAT students here have done the Master Comprehension course? Okay, so for all of you who haven't as yet done the Master Comprehension course, please do that. Spend those 2 hours on Master Comprehension course, because that's a foundation course for all verbal. In that course, you're going to learn where to pause, how to interpret information, how are long sentences formed. So you need to set the foundation right before you carry on with the course. Okay, now where can we find that? You can find that in your course subscription. Again, this is for the e-GMAT students. Alright, so understand sentence structure. The second one is predict thoughts through keyword. Now by that what I mean is that one thing that you need to understand first of all is that when an author writes an RC passage, he or she is not trying to make your life difficult. The goal of an author is to make sure that the point is communicated in the right manner. Now for that, the author utilizes writing strategies in a very, very effective manner. Okay, you'll always find each and every official RC passage is a beautifully written piece of text. Okay, you're not going to find any glaring structural issue in it or any glaring logical issues in it. I mean, you're going to find that a very, very coherent piece of text. And because the GMAT RC passages are so coherent, are so cohesively put together, we are able to come up with these reading strategies. So we are, in fact, if you think about it, understanding the sentence structure, we are utilizing how an individual can put together a long sentence. Okay, what is the thought process that goes behind that? So we're utilizing that writing strategy into our reading strategy. Likewise, predicting thoughts through keyword, we know that when an author is writing a nice passage, he or she is going to be using certain transition words to communicate the point in a very effective manner. So we're utilizing that writing strategy to our advantage. Okay, and I'll give you an example. Let's say that the author has said, has stated a positive aspect about a certain thing, right? And then after stating that positive aspect, he then states, having said that. Now, before you read any further beyond having said that and that comma, you need to ask yourself, what is the author going to say next? So tell me. The author has made a positive statement about something, and now the author says, having said that, and then you pause. So what do you think he's going to say next? He's going to present a contrast, he's going to present a negative statement, something which is different from the positive aspect. He may present a neutral aspect, it has to be something different, something opposite from the positive aspect, not another positive aspect for sure. Okay, so something that you can say for sure is that the author is not going to give you something positive, right? So that is, now if you have that impression in your mind already and then you read what comes next, you have already primed your mind to interpret the information that follows. That is the power of predicting thoughts through keywords. You are and I'm going to repeat that. Okay, what you're doing is you are priming your mind, you're priming your brain to understand what the author is going to say next by predicting the thoughts through the keywords or through the clues that the author has put into the passage. Start doing that. You're going to see what kind of impact that has. You're going to see the kind of positive change that you can experience in how you understand information, right? Because you already have a notion about what the author is going to say next, and that notion is actually a very, very solid notion. Why is that solid? Because you understand what having said that means. You understand what moreover means. You understand what in addition to means, right? And the author is not going to trick you. The author is not going to say moreover, but then not present a narrative fact, right? The author is not going to say however and not present a contrasting fact. That's not what the author is trying to do. Right? So you're utilizing that information you're utilizing those writing strategies and you're converting those into effective reading strategies. Okay. The last one is summarize and predict what's next. And you may think that, okay, we are predicting again and again. No, this is not the same kind of prediction. By summarizing, what I mean is that you read an amount of text, and I'm not specifying what amount of text here because that amount varies from person to person. But you read an amount of text and as soon as you feel there is too much information, what you do is you pause and you summarize all that you've read in your own words, and then you kind of think about, okay, the author has mentioned this, this, and this. Now, I feel that this is what the author is going to do next. Now, your prediction at this point may not be what the author is actually doing, but that's okay. The whole point over here is that you are making an effort to continually immerse in the passage. That's what you're trying to do. But in this case, the most important thing that you need to do is you need to summarize, because when you summarize a piece of text in your own words, you retain that, you understand that a whole lot more. Okay, so as soon as you feel that there is an overload of information, you pause and you summarize in your own words, and then you move forward. Okay, so really, if you think about it, strategy number 1 is on the sentence level. Strategy number 2 is within a paragraph, right? When you see those keywords being used, you just pause and then you predict what's going to come next without reading the whole thing that's actually coming next. Only after you have predicted the relevance of the keyword, only then you read further. Okay, and then within a summarization happens within the paragraph and among the paragraphs. Okay, all right. So, do all these strategies make sense to you? Yes or no? Again, I'm going to be demonstrating these strategies, but for now, just want to get the pulse of the class. Do all these strategies make sense to you? Good. Okay, now which of these 3 strategies you have not used at all? And you can say 1, 2, and 3, none of these 3, whatever. You have 3 strategies on the screen. Which ones have you not used at all? And you can write multiple. Okay. 1 and 3 you have not used at all. Number 3 you have not used at all. First and second, 1 maybe. All right. Used everything. Okay. Summarizing part. Good. All right. Sounds good. Now, the most important thing that I'm going to say right now. I know everything that I say is important, but this truly is the most important thing. Why? Because a number of you in the past, a number of students in the past have actually stumbled here. Apply these reading strategies slowly. That is a very, very important thing. Do not apply these reading strategies in a hurry. Don't think that you can summarize, you can predict, you can understand the sentence structure in a rushed manner. These things consider them as oxymorons. You cannot apply these reading strategies in a fast pace. No. You cannot say, I applied these reading strategies really fast. No, that sentence is nonsensical. So apply these reading strategies slowly to improve your comprehension. Okay. Is this point clear? And I need a definite yes from all of you. Is this point clear? Good. Now, apart from these strategic these reading strategies, there are certain tactical things that you need to use in order to make your life easier. And one of those is what we're going to be demonstrating in the session today, and that is to shorten the technical terms and names. So whenever you read a technical term, and you are going to read quite a few in the 2 passages that follow, just shorten them up. I mean, don't consider them, don't let them, they are really meant to be speed bumps. So just shorten them up, abbreviate them, move forward. Okay, so that's a strategy that we're going to be working on, that we're going to be seeing. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to together apply these strategies on the first passage, and this passage is a really short passage. Now I do have a question here in the Q&A pod. Do I still need to work on timing while applying these strategies? No, you should not work on timing at all. Right now, till you don't reach a point where you have your strategies as a second nature, you should not worry about the timing aspect at all. Trust me when I say that time is a consequence. If you follow the right process in the right manner, both those things are important. If you know the right process, if you follow the right process in the right manner, timing is going to fall in place automatically. Okay, so don't worry about timing at all. And in fact, after I demonstrate the first passage, I believe, or maybe after both the passages, I am going to be showing you certain points about the timing aspect as well. Okay, won't I be losing on the questions, as there are limited number of questions that I can get? Again, don't worry about the time at all. Just for the sake of this session at least, forget about timing. By the time you get to the end of the session, you will realize what I'm talking about. Okay, so just forget about timing for now. Now let's do one thing here. Can you all please click on no in this poll? Click on no. Again, as I said, I'm not going to be timing you all. So what I'm going to be doing is I will give you the passage. I want you to read the passage, and then as soon as you're done reading the passage, I want you to click on yes. Okay, when about 50 to 60% of the class has clicked on yes, I will show you a question. I will show you the question for that passage. Okay. All right. So here, one more thing is that I will show you, I want you to take down notes as you are reading the passage. Okay. So take down your notes, and at the end of, but enter your notes, write your notes in your scratch pad. I don't expect you to take notes on the computer screen. But after you're done reading the passage and taking your notes, write down a summary of your notes over here in this pod. Okay. All right. So here you go. All right, I'm going to show you the question now. All right, last few seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay, so about 48% of the class selected choice D. Then you have choice C, 25%, B, 21%. All right. Okay, so let me understand from you how you perceived this passage. How was it? Did you feel it was difficult? Did you feel it was manageable? So give me some inputs about what you felt about this passage. Verbose, words were difficult, it was simple. Okay, let's see, let's get a yes no thing, because I want to understand as a group where you guys are at. So how many of you found the passage easy? Say yes if you found the passage easy. Say no if you did not find the passage easy. Okay, so about a 30-70 split. Sounds good. Now this was a very short passage. Imagine if there were a passage which has which is, let's say, 5 times the length of the passage that you see, and just imagine how hard would that passage be. Okay, you have to prepare yourself to be able to answer this level, the dense the passages that are as difficult as this one, or even, right? So that's what you have to prepare yourself. Okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate in front of you how I read the passage, okay? Regardless of the type of passage, regardless of the length of passage, regardless of the density of passage. This is how I read each and every piece of text, okay? Bordering on the extreme, comma, one definition. I'm just going to pause here, okay? I'm not going to read any further. I want to understand what the author has said till now. And what I'm going to say here is, bordering on the extreme, one definition of something. Now, what does bordering on the extreme mean? Bordering on the extreme means that this is one of the more extreme cases. It's a rare thing. It's an extreme definition of something. Absolutely right. Or it's an exaggeration. So whatever the author is going to say next, and that's the definition, right? That actually is an extreme definition. It's not something which everyone agrees with. It's an extreme definition, right? So bordering on the extreme, one definition. And what borders on the extreme? It's the definition of something that borders on the extreme. Okay, that is what it is. Now, what is it the definition of? The definition of ethnocentrism, and that's a technical term. So I'm going to shorten it up. I'm going to apply my tactical strategy, and I'm going to shorten it up as EC. So one definition of EC, and by the way, that's an exaggerated definition of EC. Let's see what it is. Considers EC a schematic in-group, out-group differentiation in which. So I'm going to pause here. Why am I pausing here? Tell me. Why am I pausing after in which? Why did I read till this point? What do you think is the reason? I read till this point because beyond this point, I'm going to be reading some more descriptive information, right? There are some more details coming about with regards to this differentiation. So first, let me comprehend till this point. Absolutely right. So I'm pausing here I'm pausing at a point before there is another piece of information coming about. Okay, so I'm pausing here. So again, I'm giving you certain ideas about where to pause, but all of this is covered in detail with special practice quizzes built in for you in the Master Comprehension course. Okay, now one definition of EC considers it a schematic in-group, out-group differentiation. Now, schematic as a word, we may not even know the meaning of, but that's okay. We can simply say one definition of EC considers EC some kind of differentiation, in-group, out-group differentiation, some kind of differentiation. Now let's read what that discrimination is, what that differentiation is, in which internal cohesion, relative peace, solidarity, loyalty and devotion to the in-group are correlated with something. Before I read what is it correlated with, I need to first comprehend what I've read so far. So in this differentiation, so look what I'm doing. As I'm reading it, I am putting the passage in my own words so that I can understand what is coming next. And I'm trying to put what is coming next into the context that I've already said, right? So so one definition of EC considers EC some kind of differentiation in which there are these things that are correlated with something else. So let me see what are these things. Internal cohesion, relative peace, solidarity, loyalty, and devotion to the in-group. Now, all of these are feelings towards the in-group. What kind of feelings are these? Or what kind of attributes are these towards the in-group? Absolutely right. These are positive emotions. These are positive feelings. These are, you can say, love for your own people. What is in-group? In-group is your own people, in which love for your own people or positive emotions towards your own people are correlated, are linked with. What are they linked with? They are linked with a state of hostility toward the outgroup. So they are linked with hatred towards the outgroup. Okay, now then I see which are often perceived as subhuman. What are often perceived as subhuman? The outgroups. The outgroups are often perceived as subhuman and or the incorporation of evil. Okay, so the whole passage is basically geared around this extreme definition of EC. So there is one definition of EC that has been presented. The author indicates that this definition is a bit exaggerated. And then, according to the definition, love for your own people is linked with hatred towards outside people. What that means is that if you love your own people, this automatically means that you hate outside people. Okay. Now, how many of you got this level of understanding when you read the passage on your own? Okay, so about less than half of the class. Okay, now tell me what was it that I did that you did not do? Okay, broke down the passage, pausing in between, breaking and comprehending, pausing and summarizing. Made it interesting. Okay, all right. Good. Now, not scrutinizing each and every word. You're right. I'm not scrutinizing each and every word. I am applying, I am looking at it as a chunk of information. So I'm not pausing at which are often perceived as subhuman and or the incorporation of evil. I know what is a chunk, right? So I'm considering a section as a section and not really breaking down into each and every word. Absolutely right. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you. So first of all, good job figuring out what I did and the difference between what I did and what you didn't do. Okay, so good. Now tell me, why is it that so what I did, is that something which is very difficult to do? Yes or no? Again, forget about the time. Okay, just tell me, what I did, is that really difficult to do? No, it's not difficult to do at all. It is very much doable, and that's why I say RC, these reading strategies, you just need to know and you just need to practice them. You do 10 passages in the right manner by applying these reading strategies, there is no reason why from the 11th passage you would have any issues with it. You just have to make it a habit. Okay? Alright. Now let's come back to the passage. The first part where we say it presents one definition of EC, this part is given in the definition, right? The second part where it indicates that the definition is a bit exaggerated, that is something for which we had to draw an inference. The third part where we told what the definition is, that is simply summarizing the information presented in the passage in your own words. Okay. Now, if you think about it, the first one most of you would have been able to figure out. It presents one definition. It's the second one that a number of you would not have been able to do, and let's get the data here as well. What I want you to do is okay, here's what I want you to do. Just tell me which ones did you get from the passage when you read the passage on your own. Not right now with me, but when you read the passage on your own, which ones were you able to get? And as I suspected, almost everyone got the number 1, which presents one definition. Then about 50% of the class was able to summarize the definition, but only about 30% of the class was able to infer. So why I'm asking you this is that these are the strategies that we learned, that you understand what's stated in the passage, you predict what's going to come next, you basically need to comprehend the passage. So a part of that is drawing inferences, is summarizing information. So yes, you have inference questions in the RC passage as a question form, but regardless of the kind of question that is asked, when you are reading the passage, you need to continue to apply your inference skills. Okay, that's very, very important. Alright, so now let's come to the question. The question was, what is the main purpose of the author behind writing the paragraph? Now, to solve any main point question, and what you need to do is obviously first you need to identify that it's a main point question. Then there are certain strategies that you can apply to reject answer choices, right? One of the strategies is that you put yourself in the shoes of the author, and as you're reading the choice, think about it. If my purpose was to define something, would I construct the passage the way I have constructed? Or if my purpose was to evaluate something, would I write the passage the way it has been written right now? So you need to get into that role-playing exercise wherein you are playing the role of the author of the passage, and you're simply asking yourself, if this is my purpose, if the purpose according to choice A is this, then is this the purpose that I'm satisfying by the passage that I've written? Okay, that's the kind of reasoning that you have to do whenever you're answering a main point question. Okay, so now let's take a look at the first choice. To criticize a concept that encourages hostility. Now, really speaking, there is no criticism here at all. All the author is saying is that this definition is exaggerated, and by the way, what is this definition of EC? That the love for your own people is linked to hatred towards outside people. So there is no criticism here whatsoever. Now let's come to the second choice, to evaluate the concept of ethnocentrism while enlisting its various features. Now about 25 of you selected this choice. Now tell me, why did you say, so first of all, evaluation. When do we say that there is evaluation being done? When you have pros and cons, when there are positives and negatives both written, not just the positives, not just the negatives, okay? That's when you evaluate. Now in this case, there are no positives or negatives. All the author is saying is that this is what EC is, right? Now, while enlisting its various features, how many of you who selected choice B marked this choice because you saw those multiple words listed there? solidarity, loyalty, relative peace. How many of you chose this choice, its various features, just because those terms were written? Okay. And that is an absolutely wrong thing to do. Why am I saying that? Because just understand the context of information. To evaluate the concept of ethnocentrism while enlisting its various features. So those list of 5 positive emotions are not features of ethnocentrism, right? That's really a part of the definition, that love for your own people is linked to hatred towards outside people. So this was incorrect interpretation from your side, and such things happen if you simply are reading that chunk of information in a very superficial manner. Okay? Now next one, to define the concept of ethnocentrism, which leads to hierarchy. First of all, there is no hierarchy specified in the passage. Secondly, this is where what I mentioned was that the role-playing exercise comes about. If your purpose was to define a certain thing, will you just use the exaggerated definition? Yes or no? No, you will not use the exaggerated definition, right? You may use the exaggerated definition to introduce the topic, but that is not the only thing that you're going to use in that paragraph and say that the purpose of writing this passage was to basically show that, right? So again, definition is very, over here, the intent of the author is not to define. The intent of the author is simply to introduce ethnocentrism. Okay. The last choice, choice D, is states that to introduce the concept of ethnocentrism by presenting a view on it. Now, this is an absolutely correct choice. Why? Because here you can definitely introduce a concept by simply presenting an extreme definition. The introduction purpose is definitely satisfied. By presenting a view on it is also satisfied here. Why? Because the author is saying that, look, this definition is exaggerated. Okay. Now again, I have a question here, but isn't hierarchy mentioned in the form of subgroups? Even if that's mentioned, that's not what ethnocentrism is leading to. Again, you have to understand what is the purpose of mentioning subgroups. It's simply, ethnocentrism is not leading to those subgroups. Okay, all ethnocentrism principle over here is that if you love your own people, you don't love outside people. That's it. It's not creating those subgroups. It's not leading to the hierarchy amongst the social groups. Okay? So the correct choice here is choice D. Now, tell me one thing. If you read the passage in this way, do you feel that the choices are really that close together? If you read the passage in the right manner, if you read the passage and you understand everything from it the way we have understood, the choices do not look close. Now, I want you to make a note of this in your scratch pad. Whenever you are reviewing the information, whenever you are reviewing your work, the questions that you've solved, and you feel that the choices are very close, this means that you have not understood the passage in the right manner. Okay, the answer choices are never close for a person who's understood the passage in the right manner. Okay, I have a question. How can we say the author is not defining ethnocentric? Again, as I said earlier, put yourself in the shoes of the author. If you were to define a certain term, will you use only, and mind me, what I'm saying is only, will you use only the extreme definition? If your purpose was to define a certain term, again, you need to do that role play. You need to put yourself in the shoes of the author to figure that out. All right. Now, one thing that I will say is that I can tell you all about reading strategies. Okay, I can tell you that these reading strategies work. I can tell you, you apply these strategies and you're going to see that you're able to, that you will be able to get to your target score. But some of you may still hold some reservations. As I'm seeing in the Q&A part, there are a couple of you who are saying that doesn't this way take longer? How can I do this in the timed environment of the test, right? So because you're so very concerned about the timing aspect, let me tell you the experience of Nishant. Here's an interview with Nishant, who went from 40 percentile ability to 79 percentile ability in RC with the confidence, and hear this out very clearly, with the confidence that in his last attempt, in which he scored a 740, he would have gotten all the RCs correct. Now, when you watch Nishant's interview, what you will see is Nishant first faltered in applying the reading strategies. And why did he falter? Not that he didn't understand the strategies, not that he was not aware of the strategies. He faltered because he didn't apply the strategies in the right spirit. What he did was he applied the strategies hurriedly. And as I said earlier, this is an oxymoron. Applying strategies hurriedly is really is not correct statement. Okay. What he used to do was he would read a passage in 2 minutes and then he would jump to solving questions. Okay, he would reread the passage to answer the questions, and accordingly he faltered. Now, despite applying the strategies, he was taking 1.5 to 2 minutes per question, and he felt that his understanding of the passage was not sound enough to help him answer the questions. And that is when, after hearing from another successful e-GMATer, that he started applying the strategies slowly. Something that we've been doing in this session, something that I've been telling you since the get-go. What he learned the hard way was that the reading strategies are a means to the end. So there is no point in rushing through those strategies if the end goal is not being met. Okay. Now, once he changed his mindset and once he gave himself good 4 minutes to read the passage, he was able to answer questions in 30 seconds each. That is the level of his confidence, and that was the power of comprehension. So really, and as I'm going to be showing you further along in the slides, what actually happens is you are simply moving your time, you're simply changing the time distribution. Okay, and while we're at the topic of time, let me ask you this question. How many of you take about 1.5 to 2 minutes to solve each of the RC questions? 1.5 to 2 minutes. All you have to do here is you have to move 30 to 45 seconds from each of those questions and move them up into reading of the passage. That's all you have to do. That's all I'm asking you to do. Okay. Now, again, that being said, when you are learning the process, you may even take up to 10 minutes or 15 minutes to read the passage. That's absolutely fine. As I said earlier, the first 10 to 15 passages that you read, for some of you, you may have to do 20 passages, but really anywhere from 10 to 20 passages, the first 10 to 20 passages that you solve using these reading strategies, you are going to take a lot longer. You are going to take a lot longer to read the passage, and that's absolutely fine. But as soon as the process becomes second nature to you, as soon as you start pausing, as soon as you start making those connections, as soon as you start to summarize information, you are going to see that now you're able to read the passage a lot quicker, and you're not consciously doing that, it's just happening. Right, so you are going to be seeing that. Now, let's move on to our next passage. And by the way, you can read, so you can listen to Nishant's interview at this link. Okay, so now let's try our second passage. And here, let's try a bit more to apply the strategies. Again, take your time. I am in no hurry. Okay, and I'm going to show you. Can you please click on no here? Good. And here are the notes. Again, you don't need to put in here. Go ahead. All right, I'm going to show you the question now. All right, last few seconds, please put in your answers. All right, I'm going to end the poll. Okay. How was this passage? And how was it, let me ask you this question, how was it to apply the reading strategies on this passage? Okay, good, easy, medium, easier than the one before. Okay, all right, good. Now we're going to learn something more about, let me see, we're going to learn something about inference, inference question type, which is something which is you can very well derive from the passage if you read the passage, focusing on certain things in a very effective manner. Okay, all right, let's look at this. How many of you were able to break, or in how many sections did you break down this passage? Good. I see a number of sections here. Good. Glad to see that. 2 is actually too few, but 4 is a good number. All right, that sounds good. Okay, so now let's get into the passage. But before I do that, let's consider this simple sentence and tell me, the color blue is considered to have a soothing effect on the moods of people. What can you infer from this statement? Can you say select yes if you can infer statement 1, select no if you can infer statement 2? So about 75% of the class believes that color blue is soothing is not something that you can infer from this statement. Why is that? Why can I not infer based on the statement that blue color is soothing? Absolutely right. It's considered. Absolutely right. It's an opinion. Okay. Absolutely right. So essentially, all the author is saying is that some people think that color blue has a soothing effect. But, so you can't really say as a matter of fact that the color blue is soothing. Okay, so very, very important. You always have to understand what is an opinion and what is a fact. Or what group of people is mentioned in the passage, right? So keeping this in mind, and this is a very, very important distinction that you have to make as you are sifting through the passage. So we need to make sure that we focus on these aspects as well. When you're reading a sentence, when you're reading an opinion, you need to know, when you're reading a sentence, you need to make sure whether you are reading an opinion or a fact. When you're reading an opinion, if you are reading an opinion, then whose opinion is it that you're reading? So you need to be able to do that kind of processing when you're reading the passage. Okay, so let's look at it. Ethnocentrism and its canonical variants are deemed to be intimately connected with xenophobia. So I pause here. Now tell me, how many of you observed the word deemed? Okay, and what's the implication of this word deemed? EC and its canonical variants are deemed to be intimately connected with xenophobia. It's an opinion. Absolutely right. Can I say as a fact that EC and its variants are intimately connected with xenophobia? Can I say this as a fact that EC and its variants are intimately connected? No, I cannot say that. All I can say is EC and its variants are deemed, some people think that they are intimately connected with xenophobia. Now xenophobia is a new term and I'm going to shorten it up as XP. Okay. Now next I read what follows. A complex attitude system cum sentiment structure. What is this going to be describing? Tell me. What is this part going to be describing? From the sentence structure, I know that this is going to be describing xenophobia. So let me read it now. A complex attitude system cum sentiment structure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These 6 words, all they mean is some kind of structure. That's it. You don't have to get bogged down by these heavy words, complex attitude system cum sentiment structure, or you can shorten it up to simply say, you can summarize it to simply say some kind of structure. Involving aversion or dislike and antagonism. Again, these 3 words you can simply replace with hatred. Involving hatred vis-a-vis the strange or the alien, a hatred towards the strange or the alien, and everything that the stranger or the alien represents. So basically, xenophobia is nothing but a structure in which there is hatred towards strange or the alien. Okay, that's all it is. Now, some socio-cultural anthropologists even considered XP and EC opposite sides of the same coin. Now this part, can I say, will this be a true statement that EC and XP are opposite sides of the same coin? Is that a true statement? No. Why is that not a true statement? Why is that not a true statement? Because only some experts consider that. Only some people think that. So why am I emphasizing on these points so much? Because you need to have your radar very much activated here. You need to always need to figure out what is a fact, what's an opinion. If it's an opinion, whose opinion is it? And I know that I'm repeating myself, but there is an intention towards, there's a purpose of that. I want to make sure that you do not miss out on these aspects of a passage. Okay. Now, I want you to tell me, why has the author used the word even here? Think about it, read the entire passage once more and tell me why has the author, what is the purpose behind using the word even here? No, a little bit more. Think through, read the first line. What is the first line saying? Absolutely right. Initially, he mentioned the intimate connection. That's what I was looking for. It's an extreme case of the first line. Absolutely right. Okay. So, what initially the author said, EC and XP are considered to be intimately connected, to be closely connected with xenophobia. Now, what he's saying is that not only that, there are some people who go to the extent to think that if one exists, the other has to exist. Okay, that is why the author has used the word even. Okay, he's basically presenting the viewpoint of the experts who take this initial intimate connection to another level. That they are not just intimately connected, they are opposite sides of the same coin. That is, if one exists, the other has to exist. There is no way that the other will not exist if one exists. So these are the, now why am I, even though even is a very small word, why am I focusing on that? Because I need to know why is the author using the word even? If he has used the word even, there must be some purpose behind it. He's not superfluous, he just didn't want to use another word and he added even. There was a purpose behind it. And it's very important for you to question each and every word in this manner. Okay? But a few voices, coming back to the passage, but a few voices have cautioned that this need not be the case. Now, but is a contrast word. All the author is saying over here is that there are some experts who think that these two coexist, but there are definitely some people who say that this need not be the case, that it's not that they need to coexist. Okay? So, overall, the passage is very straightforward. The author defines a new term XP. Some people think that EC and XP coexist. There are some people who think otherwise. Okay. Now, let's come to the point of what's a correct inference. Now, what do you think is a correct inference? Tell me, what do you think is a correct inference? No. As such, what is a correct inference? What is an inference? Okay. View of the author or majority must be true with info from the passage. Okay. All right. Now, this is something which you need to keep in mind about what a correct inference is. First of all, the correct inference is always from the point of view of the author. Okay, a correct inference is not something on which the author has not given any opinion. Okay, if the author has given an opinion of something, then you can infer that part. Okay, but if the author has not given any opinion, you cannot infer somebody else's opinion. Okay. The author agrees with the facts because he's a sensible person. So any fact that is stated in the passage can be a correct inference. Okay. Now based on that, let's look at what all can be inferred from the passage. By that, what we mean, so in other words, what is a correct inference? A correct inference is anything in the passage that the author believes in. Okay. Now let's look at the first line. EC and its canonical variants are deemed to be intimately connected with xenophobia. Does the author believe in this? Does the author also think that EC and its variants are closely connected with xenophobia? Does the author also think that? No, the author doesn't think that, which means that this cannot be an inference. Okay. Now, a complex attitude, system, sentiment structure involving dislike, aversion, and antagonism vis-a-vis the stranger, the alien. Is this definition of XP something that the author believes in? Yes, he does. Why are we saying that? Because the author always believes in facts, and this definition of XP is a fact. It's a definition. Okay, so this is something that you can definitely infer. Then let's see. So does the author, can you infer that XP and EC are opposite sides of the same coin? Can you infer that XP and EC are opposite sides of the same coin? No, you cannot infer that. Can you infer that EC and XP need not be opposite sides of the same coin? Can you infer that part? Okay. No, you cannot infer that EC and XP cannot be on the opposite sides of the same coin. You cannot infer that because the author is not saying anything here. All the author is doing is he's simply presenting viewpoints. We don't know what author believes in or what he doesn't believe in. All we know is that there are these people who think that they are interconnected. There are these people who think that no, they are not interconnected that much. But we don't know who the author is siding with. Okay, so with this in mind, with this analysis, let's see if you want to change your responses. I'm going to show you the question. There you go. I'm going to open it up. Here were your original responses. First choice about 47%, second choice 66%, and third choice D 67%. I'm going to reopen the poll. Let's see if you want to change your responses now. Okay, there has been some good movement in the choices. XP and EC are different facets of the same concept. Yes, you cannot infer that. Choice B is the correct answer because that's the definition. XP and EC are not connected with each other. Again, there is nothing to say that. Choice D also cannot be inferred because that's the view of only some experts. That's the deemed view. Okay, so choice D is not something that can be inferred. Okay, so the only statement from all these 5 statements that can be inferred is choice B. Okay, all right. All right, I'm just going to change to the appropriate slide here now. There's no new GMAT and RC, so you can just ignore that part there. All right. So really speaking, GMAT RC can be very easily mastered. That's something which I want all of you to believe in. Why is that the case? Again, as I said earlier, there isn't much to do in RC except to master those reading strategies. Okay, once you understand RC once you understand how to comprehend information, there's nothing that's stopping you from answering RC questions correctly. Okay. How many of you feel right now that conquering RC is something that's doable now? And I do have some questions in the Q&A pod which I will definitely address, but let's just first understand from you, how many of you feel that RC is conquerable now? How many of you feel that you can now master RC, that you have something in your pocket to utilize as a tool to understand RC and to master RC? Good. What is it that you're going to do then? Tell me. What is that tool? What is it that you know now that you didn't know an hour and a half earlier that you're going to use to master RC? Good. I like the read slowly, chopping, breaking passages into sections. Absolutely right. Break down and comprehend. Shorten complex words. Okay, I'll apply the 3 strategies. Good. Pause more often. Okay, good. Your amazing strategy. Good. Very nice. Now this is a comeback story of a student who was unable to do well because of RC and was eventually able to ace the GMAT because she mastered GMAT RC. In her first attempt, she bombed RC, and you should read this. I would come across an RC in the middle of my mocks, and I would feel low and lose time and thereby end up rushing through my SC and CR questions as well. So she messed up her SC and CR because of RC. Then she changed her attitude towards RC. She decided to get immersed in the passage. As she got immersed, she found comprehending easier. As I said earlier, 50% of the battle is solved if you immerse yourself in the passage. You just have to change that attitude. Okay, she was able to take good notes and get more and more questions right. Now this strategy, while time consuming in the learning phase, again, this is the student telling you, okay, as I told you, learning these strategies is going to take time. It is going to be time consuming. You will not be able to learn the strategy and yet be able to solve that RC passage within the stipulated 6 to 8 minutes. No. You will take longer to solve those RC passages, the ones that you solve during your learning phase. Okay, but once you master that strategy, once you master these reading strategies, your verbal score will increase for sure, the way it did for this student. All right. Here is another story. This is exactly what Arjun did. He took GMAT 3 times and he just could not improve his verbal score. He did everything that he could. RC was his pain point, and in his final attempt, he applied the reading strategies. He did not do anything different from what we did in this webinar. He applied the reading strategies and focused on gaining complete comprehension. He stayed calm. He focused on learning. And this is not me as an instructor telling you. This is the student who has toiled through the process. And what was the result? He scored V41 in his final attempt. He went from 40 percentile in verbal to verbal score of 41, which is 91 percentile in his 4th attempt. So that's the magic that's possible, but there are no tricks. What you need to do is work diligently and toil through the process. So what is your study plan going to be now? Here is how you can do it. You first need to improve comprehension. Then you need to learn the question types, and then you need to practice in the right manner. Okay. To improve comprehension, you have dedicated skill building exercises. As I said, you need to first go through the master comprehension course. Then you take up reading strategies, files 1, 2, 3. Then practice files 1, 2, 3. And then you basically get 8 passages with rigorous application of reading strategies. Next, you have these specialized concepts, the stuff that we talked about briefly regarding main point. That stuff and a whole lot more is covered in detail in main points concept files 1 and 2. Then you have practice files. Again, this is what Rajat was talking about early on in the webinar, that we teach you the concepts and then we test you right there and then to make sure whether you've learned or not. And that's exactly what a private tutor does. Okay. Then you have the same kind of principle applied to inference concepts, and then the detail concepts, and then the structure concepts. So you learn a concept in 15 minutes, you take a test, and then you get to know how you did while you were learning the process. Now in the end, just going through the content is not going to get you to that 95 percentile. What you need to do is you need to practice in the right manner. Okay. And you need to utilize data to tell you what is it that you're doing wrong, right? So there are 4 application files, there are 10 ability quizzes. Overall, there are 45 RC passages with uniform coverage across all the genres that you're going to see in the test. And here's another example of a student who made reading a habit. Okay, Anastasia is another person who took GMAT 3 times. She even took a private tutor the 2nd time in Moscow. She took master comprehension too hard. That's how she was able to improve. And successful students do that. They build their foundation skills. She learned how to read effectively to understand the meaning. So she also made sure, as Arjun did, to read the passage only once. And that is the power of reading the passage really once. Time to answer questions comes down since you are so clear about what the passage has to say. So be diligent, be smart. Don't focus on quantity. Don't do the misstep of timing yourself. Okay, use the strategies that have worked for so many students. Use the strategies that are based on actual actual writing strategies. Utilize those writing strategies to your advantage. And remember, on the GMAT, speeding kills. Absolutely, absolutely very, very important to understand that. All right, so with this, we've come to this session here, and let me take on a few questions. Now, there are some questions regarding the inference aspect, with special attention to the second passage. Again, these are the things which I've already discussed while I was discussing the passage. So what I would recommend is go back through the session presentation and go back through the recording, which we're going to be sharing with you in a few hours. Okay, and if you still don't understand if you still don't get the response to your question, write to us in an email. Okay. As part of OG 2020, has anything changed for RC from preparation point of view? Not really. Nothing much has changed at all. Okay, there's just a few more passages that have been added for additional practice. All right. I'm going to clear out these questions now, and let's see if you have any other questions. Please feel free to put them in the pod here. And in the meanwhile, I will share the PDF. And do put in your feedback over here for the webinar. And I'm also going to be sharing a ratings poll with you. So if you could please put in your ratings, that would really be good. Okay, I got a 650 with 49 quant and 30 verbal. Is it possible to prepare for 1 month and get above 700 score? Absolutely, yes, it is. Okay, so again, if you just want to get a score above 700, then you don't have much of an improvement required in quant. You're already on at 49. You can try to get your score from 49 to 50. That is definitely doable. In verbal, definitely you would need to improve. And again, take the free mock that's available for you. So take the Sigma X mocks. You would get to know what your starting abilities are, and then you should use the GMAT planner tool to figure out what your target abilities should be in order to get to your 700 score. So definitely that's doable. I've never taken the GMAT. Should I only do courses after taking my first exam? What do you mean by that? You've never taken the GMAT. You should not take the GMAT till the time you're not prepared to take the test. So definitely take the Sigma X mocks, because that's going to tell you where you're at. That's going to give you a full idea about where you're at in each of the 5 subsections in GMAT, and then create your study plan. Guys and girls, one thing that's very important is for you to know what is your personalized path to success. Success meaning your target GMAT score, personalized study plan implying what is it that you need to focus on, what is it that you need to prepare. Okay, yes, you have this entire syllabus that GMAT tests you on, but each of you comes with your own knowledge base, your own skill base, and that's the reason why it's very important to personalize your study plan according to what your skills are and according to what your target score is. So to all of the people who don't have a solid study plan right now, make sure that you take a Sigma X mock, and you can do that through the free trial on the e-GMAT platform. Take Sigma X mock, get to know your strengths and weaknesses, get to know your percentiles in each of the 5 sections. Then create your study plan utilizing the GMAT planner tool. Do that. Once you do that, it's going to make your study for GMAT, very, very objective oriented. Okay, you need to do that. All right. So, does reading newspapers with the strategies you mentioned help to improve the comprehension speed? Reading good piece of text, not any newspaper. Okay, so definitely any good piece of text that you read, that is going to help you. But again, to begin with, when you are learning these strategies, you need to read the passages that have the right kind of solutions. Because if you don't have a reference solution, you wouldn't know what you did wrong. Okay, so it's very important for you in your learning phase. It's very important for you to interact with the piece of text that has the solution in utilizing the same strategies that you are trying to learn. Okay, is it necessary to improve your vocabulary for RC? If yes, how would you recommend doing so? Again, vocabulary is really overrated, for the lack of better word. You don't really have to go out of your way to build your vocabulary. You know, if you go through the content that we have in our course, if you go through the official guide, and if you do it in the right manner, there is no reason why you need to pick up any other vocabulary book to improve your vocabulary. Where is SigmaX mock? Again, register for the free trial and you should see SigmaX mock there. I have now started to study for GMAT. Is it possible to get a score of 700 in a month's time, and what should be my schedule like? Again, as I recommended earlier, take SigmaX mock, use GMAT study planner, and you will get your study plan that is truly personalized to you. In a mock, I got 440 as I was very conscious of the timer. How do I improve and get ready for the exam in 2 months? I seem to lack in quant and SC. So that's a very broad question. You got a 440. Again, what mock are you talking about? That's my first question. My second question is, if you were conscious of the timer, that's okay. You know, timing, it's not that if you were conscious of the timer, you got a 440, but as such, you were skilled enough to get a 600 or a 650. No, if you've gotten a 440, means that you may have been maybe at a 450 a 450 or maybe a 500, but this does give you a good enough idea about where you are lacking in skills. And it would be not just in SC. If you have gotten a 440, then you would have problems in other sections of verbal as well. So for you, I would say, do not take the mock tests again. All you need to do is start preparing, create your study plan based on the skill data that you've gotten from the 440 mock. You would need to go through almost the entire course. Okay, so that's what I would recommend. So are the 45 RC passages only in the Master Comprehension course? No. Master Comprehension course does not have anything, it does not have any RC-like passage. It basically teaches you, Master Comprehension course simply teaches you how to read a sentence. So the exercises that you have in there are based on a sentence by sentence basis, are based on a sentence. All the passages that I talked about, the 45 RC passages, they are included in the course, in the reading comprehension course. Okay. How do I learn about SC in the similar way I learned today about RC? Attend our SC free webinar. I'm aiming for 750. Is it possible in the next 3 months if I take my first attempt at the end of August? Definitely yes. So again, guys, the answer is very simple. You have to make sure that you understand what your current skills are and you know how to get to your target score. So believe me, when I say that, take SigmaX mock, free trial mock, get your starting abilities in all the 5 sections, go to GMAT Planner, create your study plan. It's as simple as that. Okay, you will have exact personalized study plan for you. Okay. How can I jump from 640 to 700? How many questions do I need to get right to make that jump? That question itself this question itself tells me that you do not have a complete understanding of how GMAT works. Okay, so again, as I said, write to us. Again, for you, what I'm recommending is that you write to us so that we can explain to you, we can give you the right kind of material so that you understand how the GMAT works. Okay, you can get, long story short, you can get 640 and 700 score by answering exactly same number of questions correct. Okay, so really you need to understand the adaptive nature of the test so that you're not wasting your time on focusing on wrong things. Am I too late to start preparing for GMAT as deadlines start in September? Not really. Again, figure out how much time you need. I mean, there are people who are already way ahead. I mean, when they start off and within a month, they can get to their target score. And then if you do that, you have another month or 2 months to prepare for your application. So you need to start now, is what I would say. Can we follow OG wisely? Can it help than other? I'm not sure what that question means. Solving OG questions is part of the OG syllabus, is part of our course. We tell you when exactly to solve what exact set of OG questions. So definitely solve OG questions as you're going through our course. Do you recommend any articles that can be read during office hours to increase RC? Yes, read up any Wall Street. So while you're preparing for RC, so I understand that you're talking about when you're at work, in a break, what can you read? Any Wall Street Journal article, any New York Times article, definitely, so you can read them. But again, what I would say is, in the beginning, when you're learning the process, spend those 2-3 days in a focused manner. Okay, keep your mind fresh. Don't overburden yourself in the office during those 2-3 days because you're learning a new skill. So do a focused activity. Okay, don't try to squeeze in time, is what I would say. But once you have your basics right, once you have built your comprehension ability, then yes, to do constant practice, just read up any article from Wall Street Journal, from New York Times, from Economist, and basically do that. Okay, since GMAT is a computer adaptive test, are all questions related to a single RC of the same difficulty level? That's a good question. Yes and no. So basically, the overall difficulty level of the passage is calculated based on the different difficulty level of questions that you see. But yes, on an average, yes, each RC is a particular difficulty level. But it's not that all the questions in that RC passage will all be easy. You can have, let's say, 2 easy, 1 medium, and 2 easy, 1 medium passage, and that would lead to an easy passage. Again, it's all a range of passages. It's a range of questions. When you create an RC passage, I'm sure that we are not creating just the 3 questions that appear in the test. You're creating 8 different questions, for example, and then you're picking out the question engine may pick out certain specific questions based on the difficulty level of the passage that you need to be served. What a good question. I'm starting GMAT prep. How often should I take the exams? Just take the exam in the beginning to figure out where you're at, right? And then go through the preparation, and then towards the end only take up the remaining Sigma X mocks to make sure that you are fine-tuning your preparation. I gave my GMAT last month and got V25. Will it be possible to reach V40 in the next 2 months? Absolutely yes, it's going to be possible. Again, make sure that you create your own personalized study plan. If you've taken the GMAT last month, definitely order your ESR to make sure that you get your starting abilities from the ESR itself. That way you will not utilize the mock, the Sigma X mock at this point. You already have the ESR. You can utilize the information from that ESR to figure out what your starting abilities are. What all types of courses are available with e-GMAT? Again, we have pure play online based course, which is GMAT Online. The second one is GMAT Online with live sessions such as these ones, wherein we reinforce the topics that we teach you in the course. So you have 2 kinds of courses. Can you share the email ID where I can shoot my questions at? Definitely. You can write to me at payal@e-gmat.com, or you can write to us at support@e-gmat.com. Okay, I got a V26 and Q41 in Sigma X Mark 560 with, okay, can this be improved within 10 days? Okay, so Purvi, if you've, again, the accuracy, that is four SC questions, 5 CR questions, and 5 RC wrong, that doesn't mean much, okay? It all depends upon, because you've gotten a V26, this means that you were served easy and medium questions. Okay, so you definitely need to improve on, I need more information. So basically send an email to our support group so that we can analyze your score report from Sigma X Mark and give you the right study plan. 10 days. I don't think that's going to be enough time. Just looking at Q41, I know that to go from 41 to 46 or 47 is going to be a good amount of work for you. Likewise, V26, if that's only because of based on the number of questions that you've gotten wrong in CR and RC, I feel that at least 2 of your sections require a whole lot of work. So 10 days, I don't think it's going to be possible. But again, you have all the data with you. What you can do now is create that personalized study plan for yourself and figure out what is a reasonable date for you to take the test. Okay. And guys, this is a very, very important thing. I mean, now your GMAT prep is totally under your control. Okay. It's no longer that black box that you keep putting in the effort, and in the end, when you go for that expensive $250 to $300 test, that's when you realize, oh my god, that didn't work. Okay, now you have these Sigma X marks that can help you figure out where precisely you're going wrong, and you have this personalized study planner tool, this GMAT planner tool that you can utilize to create your study plan. And then you have the course which teaches you the concepts, which teaches you the approach, and then you have Scholarium, which then can be utilized to fine-tune all your each of your skills wherever needed, right? So you have all that data, you have all the tools at your own disposal. Okay, all you have to do is utilize those tools, utilize that data in the right manner, and write to us so that we can help you do that, we can enable you to do that. All right, so I'll have to end answering questions now. If you can please send your questions, or what we can do is, if you can please write to us at support@e-gmat.com, we will definitely take out the time to respond to each of your questions. So please do that. I'll take this last question, which is for RC. Again, the right question to end the session with. How many passages ballpark does it take for the 3 strategies to become second nature? As I said, anywhere from 10 to 20 passages. Okay. Just do them in the right manner, and these strategies will become second nature to you. Okay. All right, so let me share the session PDF with you, and I really appreciate all your positive feedback here. Thank you very much. It really feels good when, when the session is received well. So thank you very much for that. And let me share the PDF here. Here's the batch calendar, and here's the session PDF. All right, so thank you very much. It was really wonderful conducting this session with you. I always say conducting this session with you. Why? Because it's the interaction that you guys have that make me tweak the session based on your needs and your questions. So thank you for being so responsive, and I will see you next in the next free session here. So I welcome all of you to register for the sessions next weekend. All right, bye-bye. Have a good weekend, and I wish you all the very best for your preparation. Write to us, give us the details so that we can help you accomplish your GMAT dream, and we can set you on the path of success towards your MBA dream.